Yeah. Awesome. So we are recording. What a crazy beginning to a webinar, right? Someone's hitting the play button on the recording. And Tina Powell, my friend, thank you for being here. Very quickly, I'll make, some kind of really informal introduction. First off, I'm gonna golf Pinehurst with you one day.
We are.
Uh, so Tina Powell, now of Intentionally, which is so cool because do you know that I knew Kelly 15 years ago when she was running marketing for Janney Montgomery Scott?
That's fabulous.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's an incredible backstory
Yeah.
there.
We were doing websites for Janney back in the day, and Kelly was, I think, in charge of that program. Now I get to watch her family grow up on Facebook. How cool is that?
And
But
Instagram too. She had some great pictures of Dylan and Kayla over the weekend too.
how
Yeah,
cool.
and the Intentionally family is growing as well. Oh my God, I've had to be able to work with my partners Kelly and Megan is a dream come true. I am just like God put me in the right place at the right time. I am over the moon and I'm grateful for it.
It happens that way, right?
Yeah.
But now, when I met you was before Intentionally. You were C-Suite Social, which was acquired by Intentionally. What, last November, October, something like
That
that?
was November 1st.
Okay. So I'm in the time frame, and then prior to that, and I didn't know this about you until I did a little research. Adjunct marketing professor at NYU.
Yes, I actually had one of my students text me today because I posted that video up on Facebook. Dear professor,
Yeah.
gosh, I would be teaching at NYU. Again, I taught in the graduate program, integrated marketing. I did my master's at NYU. And then my advisor after that said, "Hey, there's an opening and I think that you'd be great." The hard part is to teach in an age of digital and social media, which means basically that it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
So students are available at any time and you're building your class materials on an LMS platform. If I like that would be maybe something that I would do again in retirement. I loved being part of that. And a big shout out to NYU and all my colleagues too over there. I had the most tremendous experiences, both an adjunct instructor and as a student.
So cool. So cool. And prior to that, several years with Beacon Wealth Management, running their marketing, client acquisition strategies.
Yeah, so I started with Beacon Wealth Management actually as a consultant, and then they gave me an offer that I couldn't refuse to join the firm. So I shut down the LLC at the time, that was Powell Graphics, and then I got myself on a rocket ship, and for 7.5 years ran Beacon Wealth Management's business development, client acquisition strategy, and in the age of social, it was pretty cool. I created a program, Twitternomics. We sold to Mercer Advisors, and that was also too like a fantastic thing. So the experience that I offer is from that purview of understanding a firm and being inside a firm for 7.5 years. Every single prospect meeting for 7.5 years. I get it from the traditional sense, and I get it from the digital sense. So again, a tribute to all the advisors doing really hard work to grow their firms and who are on this call.
So I guess the point behind all that is, wow, you're the right person to have here today.
Uh,
So Tina and I today are going to talk about the power of storytelling, right? And I know this is in your periphery because we're not the first people to talk about this. Um, it's amazing how powerful a story can be, especially, and we were talking leading up to the top of the hour, and a lot of you got to tune in on that for that, especially in a world where there's, advisors come out of a very traditional sales environment. If we look at the last 10 years of social media, which really been broadly accepted within the industry, it becomes so much easier to connect with people, to build a network, to influence people. But there's so much of that old mindset, like, always be closing kind of mindset that quite frankly spoils sales today. Sales are very different today. You have to make a deeper connection with people. It's no longer the days of write down to the 200 people closest to you, and here's a phone book, dial 250 people a day, right? So the ability to build a large network and influence a large network can directly translate to the successful growth of a practice, so long as that network rallies around your story and who you are as an individual. And so I think Tina, if you want to add anything there, but that kind of sums up what we're going to cover today. Not only the science behind it, but the nuts and bolts of creating a story and then how to distribute that story the best way.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, and you hit upon it here, is that, this whole idea of always be closing. I was a business major, and, who doesn't remember Glenn Ross, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And before the internet and before digital the way it is right now, the seller was in the driver's seat. And now very much the buyer is in the driver's seat. And that's because we have access to so much information. And I would say that the journey is quite different. It's multi-pronged, it's multifaceted, it's complex, it's different for each person. And there are touch points along the way that never existed. And there are even more and more touch points being created. Yeah. So storytelling is going to help to carve a path through that.
Yeah, no doubt. So, and before we get going, just kind of, if you've chat or the Q&A box. So Tina gets to do a lot of the talking today. I got some questions. You guys will have some questions too, and we'd love it. I love this format, Tina. It's almost like live podcast, if you will, right? So rather than us going through a presentation, the slides are just here to keep us on topic. But very conversational. So if you've got questions, by all means, either the chat or the Q&A box, whichever is better for you. I looked up a couple quotes that I could, just to introduce our topic. They're like this was a hard one to choose, only because, and Gary's someone everybody knows, right? It's a hard one to choose because there were, from marketers, from novelists, Gary's the most popular guy I could find on the list. So I picked Gary Vaynerchuk quote, but really, honestly, there were thousands and thousands to sift through to find one for our presentation. So anyway, storytelling is by far the most underrated skill when it comes to business. Yeah, to your point, Tina, you got to be memorable. People have to know not only who you are, but what you stand for, and everything that comes with it. So
yeah, and Gary's one of the best marketers on the planet. I have toured the offices of VaynerX in Hudson Yards, cool. And I was like, oh, for me, it was marketing. It was the most incredible experience ever. But if you watch, and which we have, right? If you listen and you study Gary as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and as one of the most successful marketers on the planet, when he leads off his keynotes, he always brings that story element and talks about where he came from.
Always. Yep.
Always. He never goes right into his shtick. Never. Yep. Never. Yep. And that's and he's been doing that for years. So, clearly I think that the example that you picked out is brilliant.
Yeah, lucky then, I guess. I don't know, because there really weren't so many to choose from. It's crazy. We're not breaking ice here. We're just delivering a message, right?
Yeah.
So simple question. What's it about humans? We'll talk about the science of this, right? Why does this work? Why is storytelling so powerful? But what is it about humans that makes storytelling so powerful in delivering a memorable message that moves people to action, Tina?
Yeah. So the first thing is that literally the concoction in your brain, and I'm going to do this right now as a little bit of a scientific experiment. We're all going to imagine that we're in bio lab right now. Okay, we're in anatomy class right now, and we're studying brain science. And for most of you, for some of you who are on the call who don't know, I was diagnosed with stage 2 lung cancer on January 16th, 2023. On February 13th, I underwent a robotic lobectomy surgery to have part of my upper lobe of my right lung actually taken out of my body. And on March 29th, I started chemotherapy. Okay, now, I just gave you that, right? Your brain, especially for people who never heard that in a million years, guaranteed you are all going to remember. And again, this is, please don't feel sorry for me right now. I'm in a really good place and I'm getting really treatment and I feel very thankful to God. Okay. So I want this to be very, very uplifting, But what I'm trying to point out, and you don't have to use, hopefully you don't have a story as severe as mine right now, right? But you pick it. It is literally memorable. What I just did right now is I delivered a cocktail concoction, you can thank me for the dirty martini here, of dopamine, epinephrine, and all of these chemicals going on in your brain right now that force you to, bam, you will remember what I just told you by virtue of just, telling a little bit of that story. So the first thing is that, number one, why it's so powerful, and we've been doing it from the beginnings of humanity, okay? We can look at the Egyptian pyramids for one. The reason why it works is because, number one, is that your brain is chemically altered by a story. Number two is that it is memorable, guaranteed that nobody on this call right now is going to forget my little story as, what did I say it in, like 20 or 30 seconds here? Okay. And number three is, and we were talking about this in the beginning, Charlie, and you were alluding to it with so much activity on LinkedIn. How do you think you advisors are going to stand out? Through ESG and SRI? Through direct indexing products and services and things? I'm sorry. And I have respect for those philosophies and those values and things. You need to figure out a way to make you, your practice, your values, and the things that you do memorable. It's a commoditized sales environment, and you need to be able to cut through the noise and cut through the clutter.
Tina, you told me that story a month ago, maybe it's 2 months ago now, whenever it was. I can tell you exactly where I was when you told me the news of you having cancer and going for treatment. I can, like, literally, I can tell you, I was walking the 7th hole at Daytona Beach Municipal, and we were talking about your situation. My dad recently, I'm headed up to Wisconsin to help him out with some treatment. So, that's the power of storytelling. I can't tell you where I was for like maybe 20 events in my life, right? Maybe if I think back, I can. But that story is so powerful and it resonates so much. I can tell you exactly where I was. And all of you right now watching us or listening to us can think of moments that you learned of something that you know exactly where you were. Whether, yeah, right. I mean, and that's the kind of impact that stories can have on you.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that. And you all know Samantha Russell. Samantha Russell is one of the most talented, also, too, marketers in our space. And I remember when she went public on her Twitter, and she shared the news that her husband Ryan had cancer on Twitter. I literally remember, like you was just talking about, like I was sharing the story with you. I remember Samantha. I remember reading that tweet. I remember what I did afterwards. I remember the feelings and the emotions that I had. So literally, it's like your brain is going like and like carving out like a little part of your memory that anchors what you have just heard and what you've said.
Yeah. Now right now we're talking about stories centered around one topic, which
exactly
is,
around
it's
health.
it's on the other side of the spectrum too, right? I mean, this is difficult news to get, which is why you remember it. But when someone tells you the positive side of things, the same thing happens.
That's right. And don't worry, advisors. I have got 3 examples queued up that have nothing to do with cancer.
Okay, so the release of your happy drugs, right? Dose.
Yeah.
For any of you who ever needs to remember this, it's your dose, right? It's your dopamine, I hope I get it right, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, right? So
yes.
When something resonates with you, that's what those are the chemicals that are released. That's the physiological aspect of this. And it's gone on from the beginning of time. Mike Larkin said earlier, biblical times, right? Parables. Like, we have been transferring our history has been transferred in stories before we could ever write. This is simple physiological reaction. Now, Tina, how do we take that knowledge and apply it to financial advisors? How does an advisor use their story with clients and prospects? How does that impact those relationships?
Sure, it's a great place to start. And one of the things that we promised as a result of this webinar was a framework.
Yeah.
And so the way that you start it is literally through a framework. And we have the details of that framework. It's basically deals with 5 steps. What I could tell you that most prospects were looking to learn, again, in the years of Beacon Wealth Management, is that they really wanted to learn who we were. What was the origin story of the practice? Why did we start Beacon Wealth Management? Why we use it right now with intentionally with my co-founder, the co-founders of the firm, my partners, Kelly Waltrick and Megan Richter. People want to know why and how that agency was started. And I think that is our origin stories of our businesses. We spend more time in our businesses, Charlie, than we do at home. I would love to even hear your origin story around, social advisors, and guaranteed I will remember it.
Yep.
So,
I'd love to tell it.
I would love for you to hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll keep it brief because it can be long. I worked for 2 years with FMG Suite. And prior to that, when I was doing work with Kelly at Janney, I was with a firm called 50 Below. 50 Below, for those of you who remember that firm, your Legacy, Smith Barney, or Morgan Stanley, or, but they were acquired by Emerald Connect, which was acquired by Broadridge. Right before that happened, I went to work with Craig and the team at FMG Suite for about 1.5 years. It really didn't work, in part because I didn't necessarily believe in what they were doing. It's good for the regulators, right? And it's good for understaffed compliance departments. I'm not begging on FMG. They've got a good business. They create good content. But the truth is, tens of thousands of advisors flying the exact same content, the exact same strategy. So I looked at my wife one day. The separation from FMG was inevitable. We did not have a large savings at the time. I said, babe, I need you to give me 60 days. Financial advisors need to, and really largely financial advisors need to tell their own story. There's a story to tell. I've been working with them for, at that point, 12 or 13 years. Give me 60 days. If I can create some momentum in 60 days, I'll run with it. If I can't, I'll go get another job if you need me to. And luckily, like day 42, both of our first 2 clients closed. Tina, I will tell you, the day I went to work as social advisors, I cleaned all of the furniture out of my master bedroom. I moved a conference table in. I opened my laptop. I opened my cell phone. And that was our office for the first year. We had our first 2 employees coming to work in our master bedroom, which is kind of funny. That's the one that people remember. And no, there was not, it wasn't weird. It was set up as an office. But that's the story, right? So the industry's reaction to social media was, halt, don't do anything. And then when the regulators, when FINRA finally allowed for it, it was, here's your shared canned content. And so you had marketing companies prop themselves up around that canned content. And social advisors always has been the antithesis of that. Build it once, sell it many times, make the regulators and the compliance department happy. We have always been about telling the advisor's individual story.
So I'm going to give you a couple of lots of hearts here. I want to throw a question to you, Charlie.
Yeah.
And I want to throw a question to our audience too. What part, and if you guys could put it in the chat, or and I think we've enabled chat. Yep, what part of Charlie's story was the most memorable to you? Okay. And then I want to come back. Can we get some answers in the chat? What part of Charlie's story was the most memorable to you? Yup. Bingo. Mark, Allison, James. Bingo. Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Look, this is what I wrote down. Look what I wrote down on my paper.
Yep. Master bedroom. Exactly.
Master bedroom. Okay. Humble master bedroom. So here's the thing. I am a prospective wealth management client that just won the lottery, and I have now $10 million from which to make a decision. I've come into money. I've had a liquidity event. I've gotten a couple of recommendations for my financial advisors. And I'm sitting down with Charlie, who talks a little bit about the origin story of his business. Let's pretend that it's a wealth management firm. And again, I walk into the firm today. It's beautifully decorated. I see that Charlie has a great team. How many people are on your team right now?
8. We just made a hire yesterday.
Exactly. Let me tell you something, and I want this to stick. The thing that just sold me is the master bedroom. The fact that you bet on yourself, that you're a family man, and you have confidence in what you do, that's what that told me.
Yep.
Sold.
Yeah. And Tina, I can't tell you how many times that story has come up 5 years later in a conversation that maybe was, 5 years ago, it was a casual conversation. Then it became a prospect conversation 3, 4, 5 years later that people retain it that long. I'll share with you, and this, a lot of our, people attending probably do as well. For COVID, we did a little different, right? So it was our opportunity with our teenage kids. We bought a travel trailer and we hit the road for 10 months. And like every location we were at, I would put my cell phone in my face and I'd walk around the campground or wherever we were. And I'd rattle off some financial concept or marketing concept or our upcoming webinar, whatever was going on. Do you know, Tina, 9 out of 10 people that replied to those videos didn't care what I was talking about. All they wanted to know is, where are you now? Right. And that was a 10-month story that unfolded. And we had an audience that didn't, pardon my French, give a damn about what we were doing professionally.
I know, right? Like
where are you
your
now?
Audience in social media, looking for social media services. No, like it's like
that was the interest, right? That was part of the story that resonated. It wasn't great, we can make these connections, or great, we can create this content, or push this newsletter.
Right. So that brings us to number one of the storyteller framework. Yeah. Start with a hook.
Yeah.
Start with a hook, right? The fact that, hey, most of your content was being created in, like, right now I'm in my home office. I'm not in intentionally headquarters at King of Prussia. I'll be there 2 days this week. One, if I could do a shout out really quick, we have our first book launch party tomorrow with Wade Pfau. So really looking forward to that. So I'll be there for that. But if you all of a sudden, if I were in a different background right now, people who know me would take notice. So you could start with a hook by, I could have had a different pair of glasses on. My environment could have changed. I could be walking outside. There are lots of ways. So again, it's not hooking people like, I've got to hook them with this like unbelievable story. Hook could be a little tiny little hook. And just that, wow, bam, something that you didn't expect. I love the way that Jamie Hopkins from Carson Group holds up, something that he wrote. And again, there's, lots of different mediums. I could have started out and said with maybe a tea, what tea I was drinking, or I don't know, show you what was on my desk. Start with that hook. You're going to capture attention. You're going to surprise and you're going to shock people. Again, not shocking in a bad way, but just making them pay attention.
So Tina, quick question for you. When you're looking for that hook, how are there things that you can think of, or ways that advisors can help make sure that hook resonates with their audience?
Yes. Get out of the office. Do not have like a sterile background. Yeah. Oh, please do not have like a sterile background, heavy mahogany furniture in a conference room. Tell me the story of like the last 5K that you ran. Be like, hey, it's Tina, here, decided, outside the office right now or whatever. Just getting my laps in right now. Something like this. I think the environment right now is really key. That background we've all got Zoom fatigue, and how many people have seen their advisors in the same office. That is one way, is just change the background massively.
I think if I could encapsulate kind of what you said is be relatable. Right. So I think, and we were talking before I hit the record button, before we officially started the webinar, but we had a pretty good audience already, about, the platform I use more than any other, especially professional, is LinkedIn. And I think, excuse me, I think LinkedIn creates an incredible content marketing opportunity,
Mhm.
but our mindset around professional content is so sales and product focused that it doesn't resonate at all. So when you're thinking about content marketing or telling your story, you have to think about relatability, right? To your point, any information you could provide in a post on LinkedIn about, about a financial concept, let's say,
Yeah,
it,
I mean, I love also too. We've got some great stuff in the chat, and what Allison Friedel says,
yeah,
changing locations also makes you fresher in your thoughts, like a new beginning. Here's what I would say about that is that it's got to be something that's natural to you. Don't just like pick a background for the sake of picking a background, right? It could be where I love Carlucci's Pizza around the corner. That's great. Hey, I'm having lunch at Carlucci's next to the wig store. I mean, it should be something that I feel that you have an emotional connection to. Don't change the background for background's sake. Maybe it's your gym, maybe it's your car. Hey, I just got through my workout, came to the gym really super early this morning. I'm super jazzed. I'm reading Atomic Habits, went to the gym, sitting in my car. So something that has significance to you. Don't play it. Don't play. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm a lot of information at one time. Don't play people. Don't like engineer this. that
yeah,
that you're doing a disservice to people
yeah,
over there. Don't like all of a sudden make this like some like concoction or some sort of recipe. I want you really to dig in deep
yeah.
to who you are, and really respect before you start any of this storytelling. Deeply respect the audience and think of them first. You're not here, you're not doing a production of a show here. You're being thoughtful, and a word that we love using, intentional, about that. So I think that answers the question and covers that, right, Charlie?
Yeah, it sure does. Derek and Alan, don't play people. Derek said, and it shouldn't be contrived. And you guys are absolutely correct. And the thing about a story is a story. Certainly you can create a story, right? It has to be authentic, and also understand that it unfolds in time. I mean, we can sit down and write a story, and it's going to evolve greatly over the next 5 ways. The next 5 ways that you present that story.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be long either. Like, that's the thing. Traditionally, the way that we've grown up with story is like, oh, I gotta think of a story. I remember creative writing class at Tenafly Middle School with Mrs. Stanley, and like writing in my journal, and like, creative storytelling. And so, this could just be like a story, could just be a thought of the day and how you're feeling at the moment. I think for financial advisors where your time is super limited, ideally you want to craft a story that that could be relatable. Keyword there, that Charlie that you threw out there, which is fantastic word, and something that we can be replicated, something that could be appropriate for a large group of your clients or prospective clients, because it takes energy, especially in the digital marketing realm. If you're going to add any video production quality to it, pictures, whatever. But even crafting a story could just be a thread of if I may share an example of that.
Yeah, please.
So, I promised advanced examples that didn't have anything to do with cancer. So let me just get to my Google Chrome for just example for here. I think Justin Castelli is a fantastic example right now. So this is justincastelli.io. You guys all probably have known, very, very, very successful. He has this thing right now called Daily Notes, and he's putting it not only through his website, but he's putting it through LinkedIn. Fantastic strategy that he's, getting a 2-for-1 special, right? I would even argue 3-for-1, because as soon as you put this out as a LinkedIn newsletter, I'm getting it in my email inbox, and I'm getting a notification on LinkedIn, and I'm getting a notification. I think that Justin's Daily Notes, and he hasn't been doing it for a super long time, is a fantastic example. And I'm sure that he's putting it through his own company as well, too. putting it through even in a company blog or a company channel. So, stories, once you have the foundation of that, that can be replicated and shared across all of your digital properties. So really being intentional about what that story is. And what's his story? It's daily notes where he's sharing things that he did, like all kinds of different things in his life. And bringing in like the family component. He's not just talking about business, he's talking about more about, personal philosophy. Sometimes it is just business. So I think that thread, I think that Justin's daily notes are a great example of a good story.
I agree.
Great.
Tina, I think advisors need to craft their story, their origin story, let's say. What about the concept of having a quiver full of client related stories? So this is taking this concept and turning it just a little bit. I know, we highly encourage our clients and everybody else to get very focused on a niche, in large part because it separates some competition, but it also allows you to speak the language of that particular audience that you're building your business around and you're providing service to. When you craft a client story that the person you're prospecting or talking to at that point can relate to, they can actually see themselves working with you versus pitching services and such.
For sure, 110%. And here's the warning sign in the road. Okay, here's the stop sign before crafting the client story. And yes, it's a fantastic piece of advice, and every advisor should have it. Make your client the hero of that story.
Yeah.
Make the client the hero of the story.
Love it.
What was the client struggling with? What emotional problems did you help solve? It's not like, well, we did an analysis and we determined that, the exposure and blah, 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 that's BS. We added estate planning because, asset protection strategies to mitigate the risk and blah, blah, blah. We added an islet because they had a boat and we had to guard against that. It's like, what problem did you help to solve? Well, you know what? This family, who maybe it was a blended family where the wife was widowed or something, and we came in, and it's what you did. It's walk me through the story and make the client the hero of the story. What was her before state or his before state? What did you do? Right? And what was their after state? So yes, you need to make sure that you put some of those like services and blended offerings in there, but talk more about the psychology and the emotionality and the real life issues that you were solving for the client. That's what I want to say around that. So, make it about them, not about you.
Agreed, 100%. Mike Larkin has a question. Can you talk about the difference between a case study and a story?
Yeah, so I would say that the case study, the way that I see it, is more as a formal deliverable PDF, something on my website that here's the client, we instituted these strategies, and and maybe there are some numbers there, it took whatever 24 months to fully implement their whatever. Whereas the story is more of the deliverability of that is I'm sitting down with a prospective client. Hey, Harriet and Jason, great to see you today. I know that you've been asking about our estate planning services, and we're so, we've mentioned our core capabilities here. I want to walk you through a story of this case study with Alice and Jay. And so I would tell that story, and then I would deliver the formality of something tangible in hand. And then I would give it to the client right there and say, yeah, here were the things that we instituted for that client. So you still, the case study operates also too when you're not. That could be a web page, that could be a PDF, that could be a follow-up. I could say to Alice, to the people that I just mentioned, I forgot who I first name, but hey, great to see you for the estate planning meeting, glad we had that discussion, it closes the case study. So they'll, like, that's part of the formality, but they'll remember the story. You hope to create that emotionality in the conference room, in that follow-up, in your dealings with them. So you need a little bit of both. A good financial advisor is going to mirror and after the client. If the client is really digging into the emotionality of the conversation, I'm going to mirror that. Okay, Charlie, if they're dealing more towards the financials, which, like, let's say maybe like a very like kind of matter of fact, kind of colder approach,
Yep.
I might then I might shorten my story and then say, hey, you know what? Let's get to some of the success metrics and the KPIs on the case study right here, because Charlie, I know that that's what your focus
That's
is.
what's important for you. And I'll tell you, Derek made me laugh. Derek Pollard made me laugh. He gave the separator as one is boring. I'm assuming that's the case study, and the other actually gets your ideal client's attention.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, look, I think what Derek said is awesome. And ideally, in a perfect world, we all have all of these things in our back pocket, and we're ready to just like look at do an environmental scan, know who we're sitting across from, kind of doing that needs analysis and understanding, bam, I know that I'm going to go in with this. Ideally, you have all of the things in your arsenal.
so I'm trying to figure out how to. Renardo went. Okay, so Renardo went. Wanted to ask us a question, but he didn't want to put it in chat. So I'm going to give him the floor for a second here.
Whoa,
Have fun, right?
excellent.
All
So
right,
brave.
Renardo. I think you're on. Give me a second here. Oh,
Bernardo is
I just muted you accidentally, Renardo. But if you unmute yourself, I think you can talk.
Yes. Hey
There
guys. Hi.
Hi, Renardo.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a pleasure being here. I've been looking forward to this meeting for like a week now.
Thank you, man. Thanks for being here.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that.
I'm on the platform here from Jamaica.
Okay.
I'm a young advisor. I'm trying to move to the United States in a couple of months. I like to become a financial advisor there, and I must say that I love the work that you guys have been doing. I've been looking up to you guys for a while. Um, just a few questions that I have is that I've never done financial advising before. I've worked in different sector before, but I think that this is my calling. It's something I really like doing. It's something I really like even seeing people do, and I mean advise about finance. And my question is that what kind of advice would you give to like a person like me that have intention of moving to the United States in a couple of months and starting a new job, a new field as a financial advisor?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Charlie, and then I'll
Well,
take it.
listen,
Okay, you sure?
yeah, Renardo. So, not necessarily along the lines of storytelling just yet, as I would start building your network, right? So
Yeah.
even before you arrive here, man, LinkedIn's going to let you send out 25, 30 invites a day. If you're first seeking that position, my network would be built around people that can help me get placed. Once you're in that position, understand who it is that you want to serve, who it is that you serve best, and start, building your personal brand within a niche network that fits those parameters.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, guys.
And Bernardo, you want to also make sure that you're connected to both of us on LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure.
I do want to add something. Please don't go away just yet. Number one, I want to thank you for making it an intention that you want to become a financial advisor. And so I want to honor that, because I think the work of financial advisors, I put in it's, for me, it's akin to clergy. The right ones they are not only stewards of wealth, but I call them stewards of life. And I have seen them do incredible work to support families. Okay, so that's number one, you're going to connect. Number two is this. I want you to believe that all things are possible. All things are possible. So this isn't a question of if, Renardo, this is a question of when, okay? And like exactly what Charlie says, right now, guess what? You're building your network, you're connecting with us, and we will connect you to incredible people who could help to shorten that learning curve and get you on your way quicker and faster.
Yeah. In fact, Bernardo, send me a direct message on LinkedIn. And depending on what the goals are, I'm sure Tina and I have already got people that we can connect you with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other person on the platform, other person in the meeting right now can also add me on LinkedIn. It's Renardo Wint. You guys can go ahead and add me. Also another question, guys, and thank you for answering that question. I appreciate the feedback. Just another question that I have here is, how do you guys go about being open and vulnerable with your clients, but like not oversharing too much of your personal life? Where do you guys get that balance? That's a question particularly for that's a question for you, Charlie.
Being open and vulnerable, yes, right. I mean, look at the story Tina told right in the beginning of this. How open and vulnerable is that? So I really think that, especially in a world where, and Tina, I agree with you. Like you compared it to clergy, and I'll tell you a story before we're done here, of a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago with a coaching client of ours, about the advisor being more important in your client's lives than their doctor. But we'll get back to that. Renato, I think the more vulnerable you can become, the more magnetic your personality becomes. I really do. It allows people to identify with you, right? So telling that personal story, and I mean, you decide how much you want to share. That's a very personal thing for you. But I would say there's some correlation between that vulnerability and others, others' relatability to you.
All right, Charlie, thank you. I'll note that. It's all, as you mentioned, it all depends on me, how much I'm willing to put out there and share.
That's right. You decide where that line is. But yeah, I think as much as comfortable as you are, right?
Right.
Don't go overboard. But if you know where that line is.
Yeah, I should know. Why I even asked that question, because as I said, I've never worked it before, but I've been doing my research. I've been looking into it for like probably 3 months now, and I realized like financial advisor, it's like more of a lifestyle. It's not only like a job. It's like a lifestyle. You have to like, you have to have a successful financial advisor. So hence I asked the question, how much do you share, overshare, or you understand? But thank you so much. I got that fully now.
Of course. I was talking with an advisor, a fairly prominent advisor in Manhattan, who was a coaching client of ours, Tina. And he's a guy who's been with his firm for 30 years. He's kind of complacent, right? And I don't even know how we got on the subject, but the point I was making is you are literally more important to your clients than their doctor. Now, Tina, what you're going through, the example I used in this conversation was, listen, if you're having a heart attack, you need your doctor. You need that doctor now. That's the most important person in your life. But there's an inevitability to life that, one day it ends, right? So the people that you work with, they know that, right? So that the doctor's prolonging whatever that inevitability is. The legacy becomes more important than the life at that point. When you recognize that happens to everybody at some point, the legacy becomes more important to the life, and the advisor is directly responsible, not directly responsible, but for helping position that legacy of their clients. And like a light bulb went off in this guy's head. It changed every call we had since.
I love that.
It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. It was I didn't know those words were coming out of my mouth, but to see it change this advisor's approach to client relationship was awesome. It was very cool.
So I have an example to share around the question of vulnerability, because it does come up. So just to let's reframe and let's reorganize where we were. Crafting your story, start with the hook, set the scene, identify a problem or challenge, highlight a positive outcome, let's kind of get through these 4 steps, and let me use an example that I think is very on point to that question. In terms of vulnerability, there's no rule book around vulnerability. You may even, in fact, change your mind about sharing. And we just saw this example come up 4 days ago with our friend Jay Coulter.
Yeah.
Who this is his LinkedIn post 4 days ago. And he also has a YouTube video, and he has a podcast around this. And he talks about the fact that he had some personal news. He had been keeping it quiet, and then he was on the fence about sharing it. And then he had some conversations with myself and Ryan, and had a different view to that, right? So that vulnerability happens around a lot of core themes: health, bankruptcy, failed marriages. There's as human beings, we all have a lot of shame about a lot of things. So that's a very real thing. What I would say is that the concept of vulnerability is something that happens to you on the inside, and that your inner core being has to develop to a point, and then you'll know whether or not you'll have the urge. Like Jay had the urge. Jay and I've been talking for a long time before he put that post out. Jay confided in a few people about his diagnosis. And I would say, and I wish that he was on this call right now, is what did sharing that vulnerability does amazing things to your life, because of the subsequent people and conversation that it attracts to you. Okay. And not only that, you feel liberated from, you're no longer held hostage or a prisoner to an old belief. There's lots of different ways that you could view a problem, and it makes you more human to the clients that you're serving. Clients don't expect you, nor want this picture perfect advisor, because that's not something that's relatable to them. There's all kinds of things. I don't care how much money you have. Everybody struggles with a lot of the same things, and clients want to see that humanness, relatability. Yeah, but humanness that we all have.
Well, Tina, I don't know Jay well. And Jay was a guy that I met in a conference that I was introduced to, and we've had maybe 4 or 5 conversations. Watching his YouTube video, and I'm sure I'll see him in a couple of weeks out in Jolt, it changes how I feel about Jay. This Jay telling his story and being vulnerable, putting himself in the vulnerable position of doing that, changes how I view Jay. Jay was another guy, right? I mean, Jay didn't mean anything more to me than, a lot of people that I've met in passing. And then I watched a YouTube video, and that changed everything about how I feel about Jay.
So when you see it at Jolt, you've already queued up a big takeaway for the financial advisors and the people listening here. So how many advisor stories could potentially be out there that have to do with vulnerability, that now a client walking in cold into their office, or cold email, or even just picking up the phone, because people actually still do that. What I'm hearing from you, Charlie, is that potentially could be altered if there was a piece of content that were out there on an advisor, and that the way that you're going to greet Jay and approach that conversation with Jay when you see him at Jolt, especially me too, you better believe that, right? I'm going to be giving him high fives, fist pumps, and all kinds of things. Isn't that a wonderful outcome? Again, it's attracting people and circumstances into your life that you wouldn't have had.
Yep. So some beautiful things can come from some difficult times.
Yeah, for sure. And again, core to your inner being when the right time is, and when it's appropriate. Do I believe that all things So again, this is individual case by case basis. We are not offering blanket advice. We are saying, think very clearly around you sharing that story and make sure that you are comfortable with it. Anything that threatens, I would say, your professionalism or your credentials, or even is in conflict and not at parity with your core competencies, I would say to absolutely, we all have a ton of stories. We all have some really good stories, but stories follow that hero's journey. You start high, you go low, you go high again.
Yeah, love it. So, Tina, we are like, you and I could do this for like 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe. At Jolt, we will. But let's get back into this. And I know I want to get to our next slide is about platforms and sharing that story. Now, for me, like, all of my professional life lives on LinkedIn. I know you're more active on other platforms. I shouldn't say that. We got a good YouTube channel that's got a lot of videos there, a lot of tutorials and some stories. What's kind of cool though is my personal story, which is kind of unfiltered, especially if you get to know my wife, is on Facebook, right? So LinkedIn is more, we're posting professional content there and really nurturing a professional network that we've built there. But I'm connected with so many of those same people on Facebook who get a different flavor of, not different flavor of who I am, but a different angle of who I am, right? It's more family and things like that.
Here's what you're describing, Charlie, and which is a great takeaway for our audience here. And that is that if you imagine that all of these emblems and logos right here, imagine that they're all doors and that each of us are dressed up for a cocktail party. And behind each door, there's a group of people. So what Charlie is basically explaining here is that, the content or the group of people, the content and the conversations are different for each of those doors. So you do have to, number one, and a good digital media strategist will understand how to back into the platform where your story exists. If you were putting out an ad on television, if you were putting an ad on Netflix, if you were putting out an ad on YouTube, all of those have to be engineered for the platform themselves, and your content is no different and your story is no different. So you could have those same philosophies. We just looked at Justin Castelli's, what his story looks like on his website, what it looks like on his LinkedIn. We are starting to see, though, trends in storytelling on certain platforms. I want to share an example, and this is Scott McKillop. He is CEO of First Ascent Asset Management. His firm was recently acquired by GeoWealth. And Scott McKillop has, I think his is a great example to show. Let me just show this real fast here so that you guys can all get a sense. We're seeing these like long threaded kind of posts on Twitter and longer posts on LinkedIn. Pay attention, and if you were in my graduate program at NYU, we would do basically like a little mini dissection here. Notice how he started out with that hook. What's next? His firm was acquired by GeoWealth, right? Wealth management, RIA Biz, it's been everywhere, right? What's next? He caught the attention. He set the scene. He identified the problem, highlighted the outcome, and then we'll get to the call to action. Notice though how the lines of text. Scott McKillop is a very intelligent individual with a JD. He certainly knows how to read, write, and produce long form content probably better than anyone. But understand that his is an example that now has been altered and engineered for the platform. He understands his audience. He understands what's native to the platform and what people expect. Notice there's not a First Ascent logo here. Nope, we don't see that. We don't see Scott wearing a First Ascent or GeoWealth t-shirt, do we? Right? It is him in his glory. It is a native picture of him, of Scott McKillop being him. Okay, so that is a great example, and I'm using that to say that you have to understand something about the platform that you're posting. And if you don't understand it, you have digital strategists like Charlie and myself and a whole slew of others. And all you have to actually do is look, follow some key influencers in your industry, follow people's thoughts, and notice not only what they're saying, but how they are literally saying it. Are they using emoji? Are they using typography? What calls to action? What do the pictures look like? Take all of this in the totality and use that, but understand the platform before you just start like, otherwise you're going to show up, you're going to walk in that cocktail party and people are going to be like, you might be in the wrong place.
No, Tina, you've made an awesome offer. Social Advisors has a nice offer for our attendees as well, because we want to help you tell your story, right? So let me try to share my screen again. I get caught in too many tabs. So for those of you who are familiar, Postparty is this little piece of software that we've got that when you post on LinkedIn, it helps get your content in front of a larger audience. You can learn everything you need to know about it at socialpostparty.com. And the promo code 30 days free will let you try this software out for 30 days just to make sure it's the right fit for you. But it just helps create more exposure within the network you're creating on LinkedIn for the content that you post. And then we want to write you a blog. So if you're still hanging in here all the way to the top of the hour, and you want a blog that kind of helps encapsulate your story, all you need to do is email me. I can put it in the chat, or I'm an easy guy to find on LinkedIn. If I get a message from you via email or LinkedIn, I am more than happy to have my team write a blog for you that captures a little bit of your story. Of course, you're going to have to elaborate on it a little bit. We're not you, but we'll help you get started. And then Tina, you got an awesome offer here too.
Yeah, so we can do either a 60-minute marketing coaching call or a personal LinkedIn optimization with a 30-minute coaching call. Happy to do that. And again, I want to really acknowledge all the advisors. You're doing fantastic work. I would limit it one per firm. So yeah, so I just want to limit my offer to one per firm. Going through a lot here, guys. Next chemo is April 20th. So, fitting this in between the three next infusions. I did want to circle back though, before I did want to get to that last step with the CTA, because I didn't want you guys to leave without that. Scott's post, notice that he didn't say, oh, put comments in the chat.
Yeah.
He just put a question mark and he put what's next. And Charlie, I think that we talked about when we let off our conversation today in our webinar today of just not being so salesy. Look, if you're really great at what you do, the world will know. That's right. And it won't be because you put a CTA in your LinkedIn post to DM you for that special offer. So, go out and be unapologetically you and share with the world all of the meaning and passion behind the work that you're doing every day. That will magnetize the right people to walk through your door.
It sure will. It sure will. The beauty too, Tina, is, I said it earlier, right? If we bring 10 people on our platform, 7 or 8 of them have been watching what we've been doing for a very long time. We're not selling to them, right? It's about sharing a story, giving them a glimpse into life. And if it resonates, they'll follow, they'll come, right? So yeah, be authentically you and don't be afraid to put it out there. And what a fun conversation, Tina. Thank you so much.
I have had a pleasure. Charlie, we get on these tangents. We could just talk for hours upon this. And it's like, oh, we got to go back to work. Right. But we've had so much fun. I want to say, thank you for all of the comments and all the things in the chat. I would have loved to just do that the whole time too. And just to text back. You guys were so fantastic. I can't say it enough how much we appreciate everybody, being vocal and the emojis and things like that, and just enthusiasm for what we're all doing collectively, right? You guys are a huge part of this. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. Charlie, an absolute honor and a pleasure today.
Thank you, Tina.
And lots of fun.
Honored by your presence. So fun. I know everybody on here is wishing you all the love in the world as you go through your struggle right now. I know we'll be in touch with that. And I'll see you in Vegas in a few weeks, huh?
Absolutely. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. And if you guys are in Vegas too, please say hi to Charlie and I. Stop us and say, hey, I saw you on that webinar when you told that story.
Yeah, connect on LinkedIn too. That's
Yeah,
where
and
that's where
God
I
bless-
spend so much time there. So
God bless James. God bless your sister. I did see that. I just saw that come up.
Yeah,
God made me
James.
see that. And so
Never
God bless your sister. And if there's anything that I could do to any advice or whatever, please. I'm still battling too. And we're all in this together. Thank you all so much. Lots
Yeah.
of love, everybody.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thanks. Take care.